Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place.
Okay.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. I'm joined by a very special guest. Obviously, everyone is a special guest to me because they're my friend and they're connected to me. It is my HR human resource expert. If you are a fan of the podcast, you've listened. He's been on the episodes, giving me some advice on human resources, and we kind of hit that 1-2 punch. I'm in career services. I help students in regards to getting jobs and seeking employment. And he's the guy that you need to connect to once you find employment and get you started. But for the listeners that haven't listened to the podcast ever before, Kevin, brother Glover, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. As Phil has stated, my name is Kevin Glover. Been in the field of HR for going on 10 years. So as he alluded to, been on the podcast a few times to speak on a few things. I appreciate you inviting me back to the show again, good brother. And glad I could help where I can.
So, this is a very timely episode. We're going to release this, during uncertain times of COVID-19. But we've talked about employment. We talked about actual types of employment and types of unemployment. But for the listeners today, I've gotten a few requests about more about the world of telework and what's going on with benefits and whatnot. And instead of me trying to answer the listeners with incorrect answers and incorrect information, because it's not in my wheelhouse, I thought I'd get you on the podcast. So just in general, Brother Glover, what is your thoughts on how COVID-19 so far has had an effect on hiring or just employment in your standpoint in HR?
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. That's a good question, and honestly, COVID-19 has had a huge impact on HR, specifically across the board. In most places that I'm familiar with, there are hiring freezes because with people not working and supply chains going down and things like that, budgets are starting to tighten because a lot of people are starting to get into their fiscal year information and looking at what their projections and numbers would be, and a lot of companies and organizations are actually going to be really, really short. Okay. So a lot of belt tightening going on. A lot of positions that have been posted are more than likely not going to be filled for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
So there's a big halt on hiring in a lot of areas. Not saying that all companies aren't hiring, because there are some that are, but I can say for a good swath, especially in the public sector where you and I work, there's a strict hiring freeze across the board.
Yeah, man, I've heard, and word down the pike is that there's going to be hiring freezes in the fields of education, particularly higher education as well. What does a hiring freeze, for someone, like, let's really break it down to the students, that someone that is about to graduate and they hear the word hiring freeze, what does that mean? What does a hiring freeze mean? And what is a typical, I know it's unpredictable, but what does that mean? That position is never going to get filled, or as a freeze, do they say like maybe a year we're going to see what the budget's looking like? It's never a never case. Like, what does that mean for people?
Essentially, what a hiring freeze is a position that a company has had open or vacant, and usually it's something that's just coming online or something that's been out there for a while. If they haven't already made an offer for somebody to fill that role, they're not going to do it. Probably, the timing of it kind of depends, but because we're all in this pandemic together, I don't think it'll be fully evaluated until right around the summer. And usually what companies would have to do, or
Okay.
what they normally would do, is they would look at those positions to see, is this an essential function that
Mm,
I must have
yes, yes.
in order to operate in somewhat of a lean capacity? Because right now a lot of companies are starting to look at what is excess compared to what is, what are my must haves. And so
Wow.
those discussions are actually going, well, at least with my organization, those discussions are going on right now. What is
Mm,
something that we can live with, and what are things that we can live without? And
right.
so when those decisions are made, they'll post those positions up, and usually those will be the ones that are deemed as essential.
Mm,
Now, what may happen with some of them, the salaries that they were offering for them may get reduced,
mm,
because this pandemic has also changed the outlook of job prospects, because an unfortunate side effect of the pandemic is there are high unemployment numbers, which
correct.
means when the pandemic does go, settle down, there's going to be a huge job market pool of individuals applying for jobs. So I don't necessarily have to pay top dollar because the labor market is tight. The labor market is going to be real fluid. There's going to be millions of
Right.
people looking for jobs.
Right.
So there's that to consider as well. Like I said, there still are some postings out there, but
Yeah.
more than likely the ones that are out there are like your warehouse shipping things, like with your Amazons and people like that
Yeah.
are in supply chain logistics within the country. And then you probably may see a lot more highly specialized things where there is a unique skill set that is needed, especially during this time. Like there's always going to be that nursing shortage hiring that needs to go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I mean, I know the medical field is so in demand that they're even going into the pool of people that have indicated that they're retired and asking them to come back.
Exactly.
Or or that I read a story just recently that they accelerated and graduated a medical school class early just so they could be eligible to work.
Exactly. I mean, these are very different times. It's a
Right.
very unique situation that's going on, and people are really um, having to think outside the box. And like you said in that story example, accelerate different things so they can at least try to get some support. And
Hmm.
I think that's
Right.
the way that things are going to be right now. Really, at this point in the job market, I'm thinking unless you're in one of those really hot button type fields like the medical field,
Hmm.
the level of expertise is really going to play a role in the beginning while we're trying to get things back online. I will, my personal my personal thought is we may start to get out of this maybe around the summer or
Hmm.
whatnot. So kids that are graduating, at the end of the spring semester, you know,
Yes.
they probably may start to see some things start to come up around the summertime, early fall, and whatnot. That's just my personal assumption.
Yeah.
But like I said, right now it's just mission critical roles. I'm thinking will probably be what you would mostly find, and some of them may be entry level type of roles too. That is very possible. But just know the competition is going to be really stiff right now because there's a lot of people out of work.
Now, so like going back to that recent graduate, and let's say okay, they go through and I think they decide what's essential and what's not. Like uh, trim a little bit because they'll say, okay, this is a new. We maybe some offices we created a new position because before all this they were like we wanted to have this new need. Now they're like, well, this office has gotten around. Like this office has made it without this position being filled, so we're gonna just freeze it. Because
Mm-hmm.
now they no longer need it because it was an extra, it was a luxury. It wasn't essential. It was like a luxury to help the office, but it wasn't needed for the office. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense? You think
Yeah.
some offices are going to do that, like where
Oh
they had
yeah.
a position created, but they're like, okay, we're going to take it back now.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and that yes, they most definitely would because the thing is, when businesses are going to have to make tough decisions, a lot of them have already done so, especially when it comes to layoffs. So
Yeah.
if me keeping my workforce intact is it's critical right now. So
Yeah.
if I can just remove a position that does not have anybody in it,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
still interviewing for it. Like, yeah, my team is already stretched thin,
Yeah.
but I can save all of them at the expense of this, phantom person that may or may not come in,
Yeah, yeah,
then that's the best thing to do, because then if I did get that position hired before the COVID-19 shutdown, then I have to come up with the who am I going to let go, and it's a
yeah.
lot harder to lay somebody off than it is for me to say, well, we're just not going to hire for that position.
Got you. Like almost like we would protect our own before we add people
Exactly.
to do that. So
Exactly.
okay, so like this is crazy, and this is going to be the part where I'm offering my career advice, but from your human resource standpoint, what can the unemployed new person do in this time? That and let's really for me help me as a career person. How can I help that student that's trying to enter this market at the like probably the worst time, depending on what industry? And let me be totally transparent. I don't work with medical students. I
Mhm.
don't work with them. I work with like hospitality and tourism,
Ooh.
which I know they're getting cut. Yeah, you even said it. Ooh. But I also working with some other good ones, or not good ones, but ones that might have a better chance of media, arts, and design things where they can do it remotely. But yeah, just give me some advice that I can give to these students. Like my
I
industry is like they're getting legit. Like I'm
mean,
graduating, I'm walking. But like, what can I do?
the best thing that I could think of, and I'm trying to hospitality is gonna be it's
Yeah,
tough.
yeah,
Um, the best thing that I can say, and I know this has kind of been out there on different social media platforms too, is to improve your marketability,
yes,
because there are a lot of things that people have put off because work or trying to get their job has kind of held them up. So there are different types of certifications, or different,
hmm,
or even for people that are trying to go into art and media, like building a portfolio of some
hmm,
sort to kind
yeah,
of make you stand out from others. I would say this would be the perfect time to
yeah,
do something like that, so that when the market does come back, you can have that access to say, well,
yeah,
yeah, I'm applying for this job like the rest of these 100 people, but I have a portfolio of A, B, C, and D, or I've been certified to do X, Y, Z. Like, do those things to make yourself stand out a little bit more. Because I know in the previous episode I was talking about internships, getting that prior experience and things like that. But
yeah,
social distancing being what it is, and
yeah.
a lot of different industries completely shutting down, you can't really intern in that form or fashion.
Right.
But try to do some personal improvement for your job skills. Like I said, get some type of certification, get a portfolio of work, something to make yourself stand out. So when you do go apply for these jobs, you can be in a higher position of being picked by the person that's doing the hire.
Right. Like you use this downtime to improve and growth on yourself rather than just sit
Exactly.
there. I mean, it's kind of hard. I can't imagine being, 22, 23 and trying to figure this out. But at the same time, I guess with technology and your own computer and Wi-Fi, you can at least take on some of that ownership and learning on your own with the internet. I mean, we can learn so much at our fingertips.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I think we have to be mindful, like, how can we learn at our own fingertips on a budget if you broke? So
Right.
what can you do for free? You know what I'm saying? So I've been telling students use LinkedIn Learning, use learning videos, practice, play around with free stuff, try to get the free trial version of Photoshop or whatever you can do. But at the same time, I do definitely agree with you about that.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about this earlier before we even did the podcast. Sometimes we have our conversations and they roll over into the podcast, but I think there's no way around it that COVID-19 is going to change the world of work
It is.
afterwards. There is no way possible we're going to change and go back to normal work after
Mm-hmm.
this, or whatever quote unquote normal work is. What if, put on your Negro Damas hat, you know what I'm saying, predict the crystal ball, you know what I'm saying? What are
Right.
some things that you predict is going to change, particularly in the world of work moving forward?
I mean, the most obvious thing that's going to change is the remote the remote working capabilities, because
Okay.
before COVID-19, you know working from home with a lot of organizations was just taboo. Or those that did work from home, it was, oh, we can only afford to not have you in the office a couple of days, but you need to be here, whatnot. So that
Mhm.
whole dynamic is going to change,
Mhm.
not for everybody,
Yeah.
but for a lot of organizations, because seeing what you are capable of doing from home is what's going on right now, but also um, the actual monitoring of work while you are away from home, because as we know, not everybody is fully working from home like that. Maybe there's not enough work to do, or some people just leave the
Mhm.
computer on, just swipe the mouse pad, just stay active. Like there's gonna have to be some innovation on trying to look at workplace productivity. Some companies do a better job of that than others, because for a lot of companies right now, this is the first time they've actually really had to go full blown
Mhm.
remote working. But that's definitely going to be a very, very big change. That
Now,
really
and
going
I
to be.
get that. I get that. Now, I know for me as an extrovert that I realized that what I was getting from work was people, but on the flip side, I've been like, I guess, a little bit more productive and realized that half of the water cooler talk was not essential. So how do we have a balance between what was needed for morale and intangibles and what's really needed for work? Because let's be honest, like I know a lot of people are doing like even remotely, like we'll still have a meet at the cooler Zoom meeting just to talk,
Mm-hmm.
and you realize that wasn't necessary. And I be honest with you, I haven't even jumped in on really any of them because I got my kids and stuff. So like, what are your thoughts about that? Like how important is these intangibles of really getting to know your coworkers? But at the flip side, like we could do a lot of work without even talking to nobody. Like
Well,
how,
I mean, I think it's more so, related around the person. 'Cause, some people do need some type of, camaraderie. I mean,
mm-hmm,
I can be in an office or at my workspace and completely zoned out, but it's also a good time in between, working throughout the day just to talk to your coworkers about nothing that's related to work.
mm-hmm, yep,
So I mean, like I do feel like that is healthy, and I mean, and maybe it gets to a point to where some companies will allow, like Phil, you can come into work, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, work from home Tuesday, Thursday, have
mm-hmm,
a balance in there of some sort,
right,
or like there's a lot of different options to where you can be productive at work, still take a mental break away from the actual work, and just have camaraderie with your colleagues, but not make it seem like, oh well, we're talking at the water cooler, 3, 4, 5 times a day, and not really doing much of anything.
right.
But I mean, you can make a balance with all of this. I mean, there's no one size fits all with all of it. Um, it's just really with company culture. Like I said, some companies do a better job of mitigating that or kind of incorporating that type of camaraderie within their regular workday. But it really would be dependent upon, like I say, your company's culture.
Now, yeah, let's speak about company culture. Are you a pro remote work, or like you think that this should have been done? Wait, like let me rephrase. I'm feeling like this should have been done a lot before a pandemic. Like what I've noticed is that the technology is like, for instance, I've been on more Zoom calls than I ever been on, but I was like, yo, why weren't we doing this all the time, even socially? So do you think like this was a long time coming? And do you think that like beyond a pandemic, that this is, I don't know if this is the natural world order, but we could have been doing, or we should we should have been doing this way earlier than what we have.
Well, I mean, now I'm more so for a hybrid approach to it. Could it have been done sooner? Of course it can, but at the same time, you're also looking at different companies and their budgets, because
Mm-hmm.
being able to work remotely from home, you got to have equipment, you got to have different securities, you got to, does your employee have the capability to work from home? With a strong network connection for these video conferences and things like that. Some positions, like I said, like mine, working remote from home, yeah, it's a good thing, but there are some things that I need to be in the office for. Like, I'm pretty sure if I was your HR person, Phil, you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable if I had all of your personal and sensitive information in my house, even though it's in a locked drawer. But you
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't feel comfortable with all that stuff being in my house, where my cousin Billy could come by and pick a lock and like, oh, let me go
Yeah.
see Phil's file. Because, I
Yeah.
have all of your information. I have social security numbers, bank information, health information. Like I have all that stuff, and it needs to be secure. And I'm pretty sure you
Mm.
would feel more secure with that being locked away in an office, in a drawer, in a central location with your employer versus me having it at my house.
Yeah, but with technology, I mean, I'm assuming that you don't have the physical stuff in your house. You have that VPN or whatever to sign in. But you're right. Like, I wouldn't be comfortable you having the actual paperwork in your house.
Right. Right.
Gotcha.
And so, and I mean, and like I said, it goes back to some companies and agencies. Like, yeah, there are still some paper things that we have, and
Mm.
everything is not digital at the moment, and it
Yeah.
costs money to move everything digital.
Right.
So, should companies be a little better prepared? Of course, but all of that costs money, and everybody's not in the same boat financially to be able to do stuff like that.
Now let's jump into current news. Obviously, this is probably one of the first times where I kind of post a podcast a little earlier because I want to
Right.
be up to date. But we've noticed that we have gained a special leave from the federal
Yes.
government.
Yes.
Can you explain to the listeners what that special leave is called, the policy, and I guess your pros and cons to that policy?
Well, yeah, I can. It's the FFCRA and Emergency Family Medical Leave. Congress has approved and the president has signed legislation to expand upon family medical leave for employees across the country from April 1st through the end of the year. Now, depending on who you work for makes a difference because if you work for an employer that has over 500 employees, it wouldn't necessarily apply to you. However, if you work for a government entity, it
Mhm.
does apply.
Yeah, which is sometimes government entities state I am a state employee.
State, local, federal,
Yeah,
that
as a higher ed at a public institution, I am a quote
right.
unquote state
But if
employee.
you work for like Walmart, chances are this is not going. It doesn't apply to you. Walmart has way more than 500 employees. If you
Gotcha.
work for like a small business or something like that, it would apply.
Gotcha.
Essentially, what it is employees that have been with their employer for for at least 30 calendar days
Yep.
would be eligible for leave under this new regulation. The leave would be up to 12 weeks, and it is paid by your employer. It is not doesn't come out of your sick leave or anything like that. Now, the caveat between it is who is sick or who needs care. If you
Hmm.
have COVID-19, Phil, then by the law, you would be able to take off work for 12 weeks. Of course, you would have to answer a few questions to your employer, but the bulk of your time, if I'm not mistaken, you'll be receiving 2 weeks of your pay at 100%, and then the remaining 10 weeks will be at 2/3 your salary. So that is what your employer would be required to do. For those that are taking care of somebody that has COVID-19, similar things, you would fill out some information, and basically you would receive 2/3 of your pay for the entire duration of the 12-week period. If you have a child or children that are staying at home because school has closed, daycare is closed, or whatever, you are also eligible for 12 weeks of pay at 2/3 of your salary. Now, there are, of course, caveats. One of the big caveats is if you have already taken leave under the Family Medical Leave Act within the last 12 months and you do not have any time left, you will not be eligible to take this leave. Or
That's like a person that had a baby or something, right?
that's one reason, but yes, in the basic term, if you had a child already, if you've exhausted all of your 12 weeks,
Yeah. Yeah.
you wouldn't be eligible for this. You don't have any protected time left. Also, if you and your spouse both work for the same employer and you both have your children working at home, being at home because school is closed,
Hmm.
only one parent can claim the 2/3 pay. Both parents can't do it if they work for the same employer, only one.
Mm.
The only other big thing I would say too is when the documentation comes out, the Department of Labor suggests what your employer should ask. By all means, your employer could ask fewer questions, or they could ask, everything the DOL says that we should ask. The main thing is, if it's a school closure, more than likely, we're going to need to know what's the name of the school that's closed.
Mm.
If you're caring for somebody that is sick, we would need to know what doctor said they needed to stay home, who are you providing care for, or if it's you, what's the name of your doctor, that type of thing. So the Department of Labor is still finalizing a lot of their regulations with this.
Yep.
So this is an evolving situation, I will say. But as of right now, that is what I have been given as the way to move forward.
You think this was, I mean, like I said, there's nothing, no, nothing's perfect. Nothing,
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 nothing
nothing
is
is perfect, but you think that, let's say, is this as close to being a good thing, or you think they're way off the mark?
it's 50-50.
Okay.
It's a good thing for the aspect for private sector employers that this law applies to. They will be able to get the money back. So even though you wouldn't be using your leave in the private sector for this law, the government will pay them the equivalent that they have paid out to you. Individuals such as you and myself, as it stands right now, the local government does not get that money back. And I'm sure that you are aware of this, but a lot of, state and local governments have a huge budget deficit. And so the downside for us is like, yeah, this is a good benefit to employees that are eligible for this, but we're not getting any of that money back from the government. So that's going to be a massive hit if a lot of people take advantage of that. And that was, that's a discussion that a lot of HR folks are, having right now. Is like, okay, yeah, we want to do this for our employees, but how are we going to cover this? Because this is an added expense that we were not anticipating. And so from what I understand now, Congress is supposed to be working on a part 2 of this, where money is supposed to be given to state and local governments for that reason. Now, it hasn't made it through Congress yet, but hopefully it will, so that way we can get covered for doing the same thing private sector is doing. So that's, that's a little bit more than what you've asked, but that's kind
No,
of
no, it's perfect.
like
It's
pro and
perfect.
con with that. It's like, yeah, it's a good thing, but we're all facing budget deficits. So it goes back to our original question with hiring freezes. I have to pay a whole lot more money for the leave that I was not anticipating. And if I can't get it back, I know I won't be able to hire anybody because I'll have a bigger hole I have to fill now.
Man, so I know we're all figuring this out. This is unprecedented.
Right.
And
I
this
can't
is,
stand that word, by the way, just so you know. I hear it so much.
I know, I love it. It's like the word of the day, unprecedented.
Word of the year.
Word of the year. But so this is as best as we can do.
Right.
Do you, could there have been any other scenario where this could have like been this case? Like, I feel like only a disease could do this. Would it have been like a government takeover where, I don't know. What I'm trying to ask is, do you think that the market and labor and all this, because it's not like a terrorist attack or something, do you think we can rebound from this as a country, or rebound from this as a working organism of society? This is how we work, because it's not only happening in the United States, it's happening all over the world, and it's changing the world of work internationally. It's not just changing how we work in America, but it's changing how we work in Europe and Africa and all over the world. Do you think like that we're able to rebound from this type of situation?
I think we can, but we really would have to have a long, hard look at basically employee benefits and how that looks, because a lot of things that are wrong with all of this is the lack of insurance and the lack of the ability to take time off when somebody is sick. Because some places in fast food industry, for example, yeah, they're out there on the front lines working like they're doing, feed us when we go through drive-throughs and whatnot, but a lot of them may not necessarily have the opportunity to take time off if they're not feeling well because they don't accrue leave like that. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them may not. Or even the fact that their wages are not enough for them to be able to miss a day of work if they're sick, because if they miss one day, it'll negatively impact their pay to a point to where they won't be able to afford a rent or another bill. So there would really need to be a very holistic view of what a living wage is in this country, and what does sick leave look like for everybody. I mean, there are countries in Europe where their productivity and happiness is through the roof, and they work less hours than we do, and they have vacation. They have more vacation time. Now, granted, ironically enough, the U.S. has the most vacation time on the books that's never spent.
Yeah,
But,
I definitely see that. I roll over so much leave, but it's because we're in this culture where you kind of feel some form of guilt, and they say, I know you have it, but you're not going. We don't want you to take the whole summer off. Even if, like I say, we don't want you to take the whole summer off. But if you looked on a piece of paper, you had enough for the whole summer.
Right. Well, and I would say this, and you probably can attest to this. You don't want to take all that time off because you don't want to come back to a lot of mess.
Yeah,
you don't want your inbox to be slammed. You don't want your voicemail to be full. You're worried about what am I going to come back to, when that shouldn't be your concern. You should be concerned about, I'm going to take this vacation and relax. I'm not going to worry about work. But we're worried about work when we're not supposed to be worried about work.
Yes.
That's a society thing right there, that if we come back from this and we want to do better, we will need to change that mentality to where it's okay that it's okay for you to take time off of work. It's okay that if you're sick to stay home. My supervisor does a great job of that. She said, if you don't feel well, stay home.
That's mine. Okay. Yeah, I'm very lucky to have that too, because we think of the bigger picture. Like, we don't want you to come here and making other people sick.
Exactly. But a lot of organizations aren't like that. And I mean, in the cold hard truth is, we are expendable. If something were to happen tonight, our organizations would replace us, not as quickly as they could because of COVID-19, but they will replace us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a fact of life. You need to take care of yourself. So if we can get on that, when we recover from COVID-19 and really address the self-care of employees, I think we'll be in a better position.
Yeah. And I thought about that too. I think I am enough to be cocky and confident and say, I'm very good at my job. There's no one like Philip Wilkerson personally as an individual. But when I say there's no one like Philip Wilkerson as an individual, but someone could be an industry advisor just as good as me.
Right.
I have to humble myself and know that if today I didn't have my job, my organization would move on without me just as well. And I have to have that balance. So I have to have the humbleness to work hard and whatnot. But I think we still take it to, it's almost like a mindset of, not say insecurity, but I have to work so hard because I am expendable. I had that in the back of my mind. Yes, don't get too cocky. Don't get too big headed, because at any moment, any time of the day, if they fire me, if I get fired, they'll just replace me. Mm-hmm. No matter how much they like me. It doesn't have to do anything with the personality, has nothing to do with how much I built rapport and have a very good vibe with people. But I think that's why American culture is so used to not using their leave appropriately, because we had this feeling no matter how good you are at your job, you are expendable.
And let me add one more thing to that. Remember, we were talking about teleworking in this country?
Yes.
What you just stated right there is another reason why teleworking may or may not work. Because think about it. If you telework all the time, I come into the office a few days a week, they see me more than they see you. So it's perceived that I'm more dedicated.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the big thing is the mentality, is where I need to see you to know that you are doing what you're doing. You could sit in your office and be playing pinball on your computer, but the fact that I see you and you're in front of me, you're dedicated.
Yeah.
And that's another mentality that we would have to break out of.
Yeah, we definitely had to break out of it. I had another question from a student about just kind of in general, You know,
Sure.
they're under. I'm also naive to it. What does this stimulus check mean? Why are we getting a check? What are we getting this money for? What's that mean?
So basically, which it's supposed to be some form of a jump start to the economy. It should be it's viewed as like a safety blanket of sorts,
Mm-hmm.
and expendable. From my understanding, it's not taxed, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to pay it back at the end of the year when we file our taxes. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But really, for people that make I believe it's under $75,000 a year. You get the full 1,200. Anything over 75 of your adjusted gross income, of course. Anything over 75,000, it's the number drops down a little bit, but it's supposed to help during whatever type of financial relief you need. You need to go to need it for food. I know a lot of people are going to use it for bills. Some people are just going to save it.
Yeah.
But that's really what it's for. There's already talk of a second stimulus check coming out because $1,200 is not going to last long for a lot of people in this country, especially with all of the bills that we have. But really, it's supposed to be that support and lending hand from Uncle Sam to help get us through at least a week or two of expenses.
Yeah. I don't know. So I heard other rumors and students saying like, does this cut into their normal tax refund?
Um, for this year, it
Uh,
shouldn't.
yeah.
Next year,
Good.
that is unknown
It's unknown. Okay.
because that is this is gonna. I'm more than certain this is gonna be counted as income. Now, of course, the IRS hasn't released
Mm,
guidelines of how this will be treated for our tax return in 21,
yeah.
but I'm more than certain this is going to be viewed as income, and we
Now,
will be taxed on it later.
where are they getting this money from? Supposedly, are we as a country in debt? This is Philip Wilkerson. Like, where are they getting this money to give everyone a stimulus check? And who not everyone, but who's getting the stimulus check?
Mostly it is people that have filed taxes that have filed taxes this year, and if you haven't filed your taxes already this year, it'll be based upon your tax filings from 2018.
Okay.
So that's what I know as far as that's concerned. So if you've already filed taxes if you already filed your taxes already for this year, it goes off your adjusted gross income from 2019. If you didn't, they will go off your adjusted gross income from 2018. So basically, if you filed taxes within the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and you meet that adjusted gross income threshold, you will be receiving an economic stimulus. Of course, the money is coming from the Department of Treasury. The aspect about how are we paying for all of this?
Yeah.
Money, that is a very good question, good brother.
Yeah.
Honestly, I believe we're borrowing against the bank, to be completely honest with you. I don't think
Mm.
you and I would necessarily pay for all of this, but your two boys will likely have to pay for all
Yeah.
of this when they get grown.
Okay, yeah. So let's speak to that too. So
Right.
there is going to be some repercussions where it cuts into a future Social Security, cuts into what? What is it going
Right.
to cut in?
It's going to cut into something. It's just more so kicking
Mm.
down the road. I mean, some of the things that may happen. I know a lot of jurisdictions are trying to limit any type of tax increase, which I don't foresee any type of tax increase right now, just because who's working.
Right.
So, but eventually we will be paying for this. I don't know when, I don't know how, but we will pay for this eventually.
Mm. Very crazy. So it's a crazy time we're living in.
It is.
I don't know. This is so uncertain, and I think that I really appreciate your insight on this. Is there any, before we go into our shot for shot, is there any human resource, gems that you want to drop for the listeners?
Well, like you said, these are tough times, and for those that were unfortunate to either get laid off or furloughed or things like that, I would highly recommend filing for unemployment. You can do partial unemployment and things like that with the Virginia Employment Commission. I will say they are slammed. So you please be patient with VEC. The good thing is they can retroactively pay you. I think the max unemployment benefit you can receive a week in Virginia is $378. Maryland and DC are a little more generous than Virginia when it comes to unemployment benefits, but don't be ashamed to do it. It is there for a reason. It is a resource, and like I said, partial unemployment is also a thing too. So even if you are working but your hours got heavily scaled back, by all means you can file for unemployment. So take advantage of that. Like we said at the beginning of the podcast, improve on your skills for yourself. There are a lot of free programs, a lot of state run programs that you could possibly look into with the Department of Labor in your respective jurisdiction that may have some type of training or certification course or something like that. Definitely use that as a resource. And I would also say to even look at your, if you still are employed, even look at or reach out to your benefits department, because a lot of people may have flexible spending accounts for dependent care. And you really don't need a FSA for dependent care right now because all the daycares are closed. All those, there's no need for you to be sending that money to your FSA at this time. So maybe that could be a way for you to save in that regard. Other than that, that's really all I could think of at the moment.
That's very helpful. All right, so are you ready for the shot for shot?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I think mine is going to be more geared towards sports.
Sure.
Obviously, I don't know. A lot of sports have been postponed. So
Right.
mine is a two-parter. Do you believe that the NFL season is going to start on time? One, and some NFL predictions about who's going to not win the Super Bowl, but who's going to be doing well in the draft, who's going to start off strong with the new season, just some NFL predictions. So that's a two-parter. Do you think we're going to start the NFL on time in fall? And who do you think is going to do well next year?
I do think NFL will start on time in the fall.
Okay.
Who's going to do well next year?
Yeah.
You
want to go division by division or no?
We can go division by division.
All right. So NFC. Okay, here we go. NFC first. NFC East. I ain't gonna start with yours first.
That's fine. I don't care. In the East, Dallas.
Okay, that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful.
No, I ain't trying to be disrespectful. I'm
disrespectful out the gate. All right.
No, it's not, because you got a first-year head coach for your team.
Okay. So
Dallas
NFC
Cowboys
East.
Come out the East.
NFC North. You thinking about it? Hello, Brother Geller? Oh, he's thinking about it. Okay, good. He's thinking about it. I'm gonna do. So we got NFC. We got all our divisions, but we got NFC North.
The North. And I'm gonna go on my gut. I'll say Green Bay. I'll go with Green Bay.
Okay. NFC. We'll just do our NFC because we're not gonna do a lot for this time. NFC West.
West. San Francisco. Yeah. Well, it'll be between the Seahawks and the 49ers.
Okay. And here's the money question. This is yours. I knew I was going to say this for last. NFC South.
So.
Be real. Be real with the listeners. Be truthful.
I am going to be truthful. The NFL is going to cheat for Tampa Bay and give the Buccaneers the NFC South because of Tom dang on Brady. So that's who the NFL wants to come out the NFC South. I'm saying that right now.
Okay.
That's who they want to come out the NFC South.
Okay.
Now, who will eventually come out of the NFC South?
Okay.
And I believe we'll have two teams. We'll have a division champion, and we'll probably get a wild card.
Okay.
it will be either Atlanta or New
Okay.
Orleans. Whichever
Okay.
one wins the division, the other's gonna probably be the wild card.
So we already just saying the Panthers just call it
Oh, no, no, no,
quits.
no, no. Panthers are trash. Panthers are trash. But the NFL is going to cheat the Tampa
Okay.
Bay.
Okay.
Mark my words.
Okay. So you think Tom Brady the GOAT, which I don't want to call him the GOAT, but he's really
I
good.
don't know. I don't believe he's really the GOAT. He's had a good line. That because everybody say, "Oh, look, Tom Brady made average players look great." Like, well, Tom Brady had a good offensive line. If you had the Great Wall of China standing in front of you, you could make a bunch of high schools look good too.
Okay. All right. I mean, I can't. I'm not a super Tom Brady fan. You know, I'm a Peyton Manning fan, but you know, his numbers, his Super Bowls, they don't lie so far. So this is gonna be the test. We're gonna see how he does with a new team, Tampa Bay, which we're gonna start. So, and we won't go to the NFC. We won't go to the AFC. Maybe we'll say that for another podcast. But you heard it now. He disrespected the Redskins, which I disrespect anyway. You got Cowboys. You got Packers. You got Tom Brady, and then who was the other one? I can't remember. You got Seattle or the 49ers, which I think are very.
Hold on. Now, don't go on the record saying that I put Tom Brady. I said the NFL is going to cheat for Tom Brady. I did not say that he was going to win the division. Like that. They want him to. I didn't say I did. I said the NFL wants him to.
Okay, very fair. I actually will not argue with that. I definitely, you know, it's hard to argue with you and your logic, but you know. I definitely think I could see that coming true as well. All right, so your question for me.
My question for you is, which is sports related as well. How would you feel? Because November is going to be an interesting time in sports all the way around.
Okay.
Because you will have the NFL going. You will hopefully have college football going.
Okay.
Baseball is more than likely going to be played through November as well because of everything.
You don't think it's going to be shortened? You don't think it's going to be a shortened season?
Well, it's going to be a shortened season, but I don't know if you've seen what they propose as a possibility for baseball.
No, what do they propose? Real quick.
Basically, the Spring Training League, Grapefruit League, and Cactus League.
Yeah.
They would be the temporary divisions of baseball. Where everybody has a facility in Arizona in one division, everybody has a Florida facilities in another. So it's going to be all jumbled up. I think the Nationals and the Braves wouldn't even be in the same division this year.
Got it. Okay.
So they're even talking about playing the World Series in a dome stadium in December, possibly.
Okay, got it. All right. Wow, that's crazy.
So you got baseball in November, NFL, college football, and most prestigious golf tournament in the world, Masters, played in November.
And basketball season.
And the NBA. That's right.
Okay.
How crazy of a month do you think that would be if?
How crazy a month do you think I'd be? So what I'm thinking is for that comment that you have is that I think world of sports is going to be flooded.
All of sports.
Yeah. So I'm thinking for all that to come back at one time, it's going to be super interesting. It's going to be like sports overload. It's going to be actually it's like almost like you starved yourself and then you stuff yourself at the same time. So I would prioritize my sports watching based on my preference, what's important to me. And what's important to me is probably going to be NFL because I've always had NFL has always been one of the things I enjoy watching the most, just personally. College football because I've gotten more into college football, and then I would think basketball, NBA. So now, those will be my top priorities of what I watch.
But let me throw a monkey wrench in there for you too. Now, how would you feel, or what would you well, you can't really pick the prioritization in this aspect of it, but how would you feel with, networks having to choose what to broadcast? Because, a lot of them broadcast the same thing.
Yeah. So that part is the onus of, the money and who's paying the most and who's paying the most for ad time. Obviously we know that the dollar is what comes down to it. So whoever pays the most is going to have it most on prime time. But I think what I'm going to try to do is more lean toward the master of my own viewing as opposed to online, and trying to set up like sports wise what I want to watch and what I prioritize to watch with streaming services. You know what I'm saying? So I do agree with you. Like, while all these sports are going to be competing with each other, it's going to come down to who pays the most to get your ad time, or not your ad time, your air time.
Right.
But I think the thing that also additionally come out of this is that with streaming services, and we know the power of the internet, I think viewership is going to kind of be on, it's almost at a point where the viewership is on the interest of the individual consumer and what they choose to watch and how they choose to watch it. Like I can plug my laptop up to the computer, stream something, and watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it.
True. You want
So,
me to tell you what I think is going? You want me to tell you what I think is going to win that primetime competition?
what's up?
The Masters.
Why? How does that make the most money?
If you've ever gone, and of course, you know, I'm from this, so I know this thing. You tell me another organization that could basically buy a chunk of a city, level it, and turn it into a parking lot.
Talking about the PGA for the Augusta?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but other organizations have money to buy land and stadiums and stuff.
A lot of the people that are on the board for the Masters are probably. I think Roger Goodell is a member of the Augusta National too.
Okay.
You're gonna see the Masters bump a lot of that stuff.
Okay. Negro Damas has spoken again. I'm gonna see that jump.
We'll see if it happens.
So on NBC, which is what they normally do, right? Masters on NBC.
No,
CBS.
It's usually ABC and CBS, I believe.
Okay.
So most of the time.
So you think, okay, so let's keep it. So November, look out for what is on TV and it's going to take over. Like, that's going to be a big thing. Like, what takes over all Saturday or whatever, the Masters is on those primetime channels.
Saturday, you may be flexible. Sunday?
Yeah.
Sunday, the Masters will be on. Because those are the final rounds.
Masters will be on over a football game.
Yes.
On CBS.
On a Sunday. I strongly believe that.
All right. Well, that's going to be very interesting because, you know, Sunday and CBS has football too. So that'd be very interesting. That'd be very interesting. All right. So episode, we're doing really well. I definitely encourage everyone. I'm going to share this with all my students that are asked these questions. I'm also going to share this about just HR and all this in general. But Brother Glover, as I do with every episode, the platform is yours. Shout out some plugs. Anyone you want to shout out, anything you want to plug, I'll make sure to put in the show notes.
I mean, really, at this point, I really do want to just shout out everybody that's in the healthcare industry, you know, first responders, our food and commercial workers, because they are really the ones that are on the front line through all of this. You know, we really do need them, and they're doing a phenomenal job trying to keep things going at the pace that they're not accustomed to dealing with right now. So that's my shout out to them.
Okay, and then plugs.
Plugs. Oof. I don't know about any plugs right now, man. You know, can't do nothing.
Well, you plug your group, the one that you always plug every single episode. Do they?
Yes,
they have Spotify or whatever to follow them, Apple Music.
I mean, they do have an album. They did do a performance at the Kennedy Center and everything. Okay. So if I can continue this, I can continue to plug Say Lee, because you know that still is a good group. Love to listen to them and whatnot. I mean, you know, I'm simple. I mean, that's really the plug I can give at the moment right now.
I love it.
You know, we're in unprecedented times, Brother Will.
Unprecedented.
We're in unprecedented times.
Word of the day. Well, thank you, Brother Glover, for your insight. Definitely always been helpful. Definitely always appreciated your support of me as an individual, but also appreciated your support of I've learned new things. You know, like I said, I don't know much on the opposite side of the hiring and stuff. I try to get people to the door, and you walk them through in regards to HR. So we're a good 1-2 punch. But you know, I've always appreciated your insight, and I've learned a lot, and I know the listeners will learn a lot as well. Thank you so much, listeners. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure to follow us on everything, Positive Filter, Filter is spelled with a PH. Leave questions. We definitely want to keep you involved in this stuff and stay safe. Do not go outside. If you don't have to, if you do not have to, stay inside, stay indoors, wear a mask and gloves and wash your hands.
I mean,
20
when they want to go
seconds.
outside and take a walk, you gonna tell them not to go outside?
No, you know what I mean? Like, don't go to a party. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see some Facebook videos where people are doing way too much outside. So stay safe, stay germ-free, take care of each other. If you're sick, stay home. Don't get other people sick. We out. Peace. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.